Okay guys, so the last few days my videos have gotten a ton of support, so I really appreciate that. Our channel is definitely growing by a lot just in the last week even, so again, can't thank you all enough. One question I did get a lot has to do with my sensitivity and my FOV and my settings and things like that. So that's what I'm going to go over today. I'm actually going to go over my settings and then I'm going to recommend some settings because those are going to be two different things, which I know is kind of weird, but we'll get into that. The other thing is I do play on controller, so these are going to be controller settings. I don't really have any PC or mouse and keyboard tips. I do have a PC. I'm actually recording this on PC, but when I do play on PC, I play with a controller just because that's what I've grown up using. So I'm only going to be going over controller settings. Let's get into it. So the first thing we have here is the sensitivity. I play on 16 and 0.6. Everything else on here is pretty standard. I don't think I changed anything here. I would put this at 0.8 or 0.7. Just put it high because that's sort of like the old traction mod. The one thing I do want to point out is controller vibration. I would recommend probably turning this off. I know I used to play with it on because if you get shot or something, your controller will vibrate and it might make you react faster to it. But ultimately, I don't think it's really worth it. This way, if your controller is vibrating, that's just something else going on when you're trying to aim, and it gets a little old after a while. I used to play with it on, but these days I play with it off. As far as what I would recommend for sensitivity, it really depends on what type of player you are, but I do think that in general, you probably want to be at least 12 sensitivity and a bit higher, maybe. Again, it's just whatever you're comfortable with. I wouldn't really recommend a change unless you're like playing at 3 or 4. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You'll definitely be at a disadvantage at times. So maybe if it's really low, you could bump it up a bit. If it's really high, maybe, I mean, mine's pretty high, but I do have 0.6, which helps, so it's not too big of a deal. But if you're at like 20 and 1, that's pretty high. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You might be able to be a little more precise if you lower it. It helps a little bit. But again, there's nothing wrong with whatever sensitivity you have. I would just say if it's really low, maybe try raising it up slowly. I do think personally the best spot's at least at 12. I think if you can get to 12 or higher, then you should be fine. I wouldn't really mess with it too much unless you just want to. The other thing I want to point out is it's not linear, I don't think. I haven't tested this, but I've done some research, and from what I can tell is it's not linear. And what I mean by that is if you're playing at 20 and 0.5, it's not the same as playing at 10 and 1. 10 and 1 from what I can tell. They're just not the same. It doesn't scale linearly, so just a heads up. For video settings, again, I'm recording on my PC, but I don't play on PC, so I would not copy these settings. They're probably bad. I don't know much about PC settings. But the field of view is on here, so I play at max FOV, which is 105. I would probably recommend playing at 105 if you can. Maybe it's a little hard to see at first, so maybe you don't want to quite go that high right away, but really it just lets you see more on the edges of your screen, gives you more information. I'd say if you get close to 105, that's good enough. I do know there's sort of a thought where if you lower it, you can make your target bigger, maybe if you're a sniper, but I don't really recommend that. I don't really think that's worth doing, especially because you're not just going to be sniping, you're going to use other guns, you're going to use your primary, so I would recommend 105. I run 105. Gameplay, I don't think there's much going on here that I changed. I do want to point out that if you are on PC, you do have this option here that's not on console, and that's for reticle location, and that's PC default or console default. A lot of people don't know this, but the console reticle is lower on your screen than the PC reticle. The PC reticle is center screen. The console reticle is slightly below center screen. So it's not a huge difference, but you can see a lot better with PC reticle. It looks a lot better, you can see more, it feels a lot better. I think it makes the recoil feel better. I don't know, when I played on PC with my controller, I could aim a lot better than I can on console. So it's definitely the reticle. Honestly, the reticle is really nice. So if you're on PC and you're using a controller and for some reason this is on console reticle, definitely change it to PC and try to get used to it. I think it's a lot better. I would even say it's objectively better. So definitely try that out. Okay, now for the fun part, my controls. So this is where it's gonna be a little different because I'm gonna show you my controls and then I'm gonna recommend a whole different setup, just because when I play claw, which is the way I hold my controller. Basically, I hold it like a freak. So I know most people don't hold their controllers like this. So I'm not gonna recommend my settings because these are assuming you hold the controller like I do. And basically what I do is I press all the buttons on the right side of the controller with my pointer finger, my index finger. So I'll put a picture on the screen of like a stock image of what this looks like. I know most people don't play like that. So if you have paddles, you could probably copy my controls here, but I wouldn't recommend it because I don't have paddles, so it's not set, assuming I do. Now, I'm gonna go over my controls real quick just so you guys can see, and then I'm gonna go what I would recommend if you're looking to change something up maybe. It's probably gonna be a bit weird for some people, but it is gonna be what I recommend if you're trying to get better or trying to mix something up. Maybe you hit a plateau and you're just trying to figure out what can help. I'm gonna recommend some controls here that might help you get over that. So the first thing I do want to point out is the fire and the zoom. I have just the right trigger and left trigger. I do want to say some people prefer the bumpers, the right bumper and left bumper for these. And that makes sense because you can maybe hit the button a little faster. It's a little more responsive. Really, it's whatever you're used to, but I just want to point that out. Some people prefer that. So maybe try that out if you haven't. The other thing is I don't have my melee split. I mean, it probably is better too if you can, but I don't really have enough buttons left on my controller that I'm comfortable using for this. And there's really only like 2 or 3 subclasses I think that it's really worth doing. So, and I don't play them that much, so I just kind of deal with it. But if you have something set up for this, that's probably fine. I just don't. I don't really feel the need to, but yeah. So everything else I have here is pretty standard. I didn't change much until you get to the crouch button. So yes, you do see that correctly. I do have 2 crouch buttons, and that's not an accident. It is on purpose. So the first one is hold to crouch, which means I will only be crouched when I'm holding the button. So if I just press the button, my character will crouch really fast and then stand up. And then toggle crouch is the normal crouch, where if you press it once, you stay crouched. So the reason I have 2 is because I prefer hold crouch when I'm sliding. This way my character will slide and he'll stand up during the slide. It actually makes you slide a little bit better on your screen. I don't really know how to explain it. If you try it, you'll see what I mean. It feels like your character stands up taller while he's sliding. I know it's weird, but the slide does feel better. You can definitely tell the difference. It feels faster. I don't think it is faster, but on your screen it feels faster. But however, the main reason for this is that when you're done sliding, my character will be standing. So if you just use toggle crouch, when you're done sliding, your character will be crouched. And I don't really like this because, like I said, I press circle to slide. So I just want to slide, and then I don't want to have to worry about pressing that button again. I don't want to get stuck in the middle of like a lane or something, stuck crouched. I like to end my slide and be standing. That way I can maybe slide back, or I can dodge out, or whatever I need to do. It just keeps me more mobile. So I definitely prefer this for me for sliding. And this I have because when I need to just crouch in a corner or something to reload, or I'm trying to hide or stay off radar or whatever, I don't want to be holding this button. It's very like uncomfortable and awkward to hold a button the whole time when you're trying to reload and stuff, especially circle. Even though I can press it pretty easily, it's still annoying, so I have to have this one just for that. And then sometimes I do want to end my slide in a crouch. I can just decide on the fly if I want to end crouched or end standing, so I like to have 2. The other thing I want to point out, and here's where my controls sort of have issues and why I don't really recommend them. One is that my hunter dodge is normally, I had it changed for a second, but it's normally on double press. And that's because my single press is crouch, so I can't do it on single press, so I have to double press. And that's not ideal. If you play Hunter a lot, you want this on single press for sure. Like, so that's one issue I have, but I don't really play Hunter when I'm trying to play, like, seriously, I would play Warlock, so it's not too big of an issue for me. If I ever did become a Hunter main, I would definitely have to work something out, because this would not be good. The other thing is that I have Icarus Dash for circle, which is my slide button, like I said, and this causes problems when I slide off of a ledge or a window or something. When I slide off of a surface and I get airborne, it just dodges, or dashes. It's really annoying. It gets me killed sometimes. I don't play Dawnblade too much, but when I do, it's very annoying, and I have to remember to hit my other slide button, so it's kind of a pain. Those are two issues I have personally, and that's just that's just one of the reasons why I don't recommend these controls necessarily, but it's what works for me. So now what do I recommend? This I would keep the same, and then the first thing I would change would actually be the grenade. So this is where it's going to get kind of weird. Trust me, I've had a couple friends ask me for some tips, and I had them switch their controls to this, and they all said it helped them a lot. It does take a week or two to get used to. It'll be really weird at first, and I mean really weird, but I promise if you just suffer through it, it's definitely worth it. And this is called Bumper Jumper. I didn't come up with this. This has been a thing forever. I think it probably originated in Halo, if I were to guess. Probably Halo or Call of Duty, one of the two. But it's been around forever. Really good players have used this all the time. Pro players have used this in other games. I'm sure people use it in Destiny too. But basically, I'm going to put grenade on X, and that's because, or A for Xbox. That's because I'm going to put the jump on L1 or LB for Xbox. And I know it's really weird if you're not used to this or have never heard of it, but this is a somewhat common thing. I would recommend toggle crouch unless you want to do what I do, but it's kind of weird. I would put crouch on R3. That way you can crouch while you're shooting if you want. If you're comfortable with crouching and shooting, you can just click your button while you're aiming. It's a little hard to do, but it's not impossible. But more importantly, you can slide and still aim. It's much easier to slide around corners and shoot people because you don't have to take your thumb off the right stick. Also, you don't have to take your thumb off when you're jumping. That's the main thing, because most people press the jump button with their thumb. So this way you can jump with your left bumper, and you can still aim. It's a little hard to aim in the air now with the recent changes, but I think that's going to get fixed because they're pretty bad. But anyway, that's a whole nother topic. So you can still jump in the air. The only thing that's going to be a little tricky is aiming your grenade is going to be a little tricky at first. Like I said, I don't play this way, but I did talk to one of my friends who's a very good player who does play this way, and he said it's a little weird at first to get your grenade, but once you get it down, it's really easy to aim your grenade. So definitely takes some getting used to. That is what I'm going to recommend. Like I said, I would put the abilities on circle, all of them, for single press. Mine are different because I slide with that button, like I said. But these all want to be just single press, and you want to put them on circle, and you want to put, especially the Hunter dodge needs to be single press. You don't want to be pressing this twice. And then this way you can slide, you can crouch, you can jump, and that whole time your right thumb will stay on the right thumbstick. That way you can still aim. You don't want to be caught, like maybe someone was invisible, you didn't know they were there, they pop up, but your thumb is like on triangle or square or something, doing something weird. You can't aim for a split second. That split second could mean that you lose. So definitely try this out. Like I said, it'll be really weird at first. Maybe try it out for PvE first. Maybe try to do some raids or dungeons or something like this before you hop into the Crucible, because it will be rough. Like, especially if you've been playing for a while, it'll be hard to do this. But this is what I recommend. Like, you don't have to do it. Like I said, it's just something that I would try out. Maybe if you want to look for something new. Maybe it's not for you. Maybe you try it and you're like, oh, this is horrible. Then that's totally fine. It's just what I would recommend. If I didn't hold my controller like a freak, that's what I would do. Anyway, that's going to do it for my settings here. I think that the ones I recommended are overall the best if you can get used to it. If you have the ability to, maybe buying a controller with paddles would be a lot more helpful. That way you can jump with the paddles, things like that. You can basically do the same thing, but you can just put those buttons on paddles. That way you don't have to move your thumb. You want to do whatever you can to keep your thumb on the thumbstick at all times. you don't want to be moving it around. That's basically the main thing that I would go for with any control setup. And so that's gonna do it for my video here. I am gonna make an aggressive sniper guide. I know that video I put out had a lot of support, so I will be doing that. It will probably take me about 2 weeks, maybe a little longer, maybe a little less, because it's not my job, so I do have to do this on the side just for fun when I can. So I want to do a really good job on it, and hopefully I can make a really good video for you guys, so it's really helpful. So anyway, I appreciate all the support we've been getting, and thank you for watching.